Status update. It is Tuesday, March 28th, 2023. The time is 10 a.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Brooks, Matari, and Duncan. Are there any changes to the agenda? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead with our Noxious Weed Advisory Board position interview with Mrs. Jennifer Loma. Is it, you say it Loma? Luma. Okay. And I appreciate you applying for the position. And we just have a few questions for you. Does anybody want to start off, or do you just want me to?
Just read the questions.
I'm happy to read the questions.
Okay.
So, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for asking me.
We,
Oh, all right, you have a microphone. All you just have to push the button. You can leave it right there. You'll want to leave it up front. Yep.
just push the button.
Do I have to?
Yes.
Yes.
There, I know.
That way people can hear you.
I
Yes.
know, but I still feel so weird.
Okay.
So we have a standard set of questions we have to ask all applicants. And just, answer to the best of what you think is correct. The first question is, why are you interested in becoming a member of this board?
Because I have worked in pest management, integrated pest management, and I've always worked with the DNR and
What's a DNR? I'm sorry.
Department of Natural Resources.
Okay.
And I also have joined a group about fire awareness, and it just seems to me like it was going on the wrong, road to how we could, as citizens, voluntarily fight fires. And I feel like one of the ways we can do is with the soil. And the only one thing I personally can do, even if it sounds really small, is I can help educate the public who wants to know, not going telling them, making them hear anything, but and teach them about which noxious weeds they have, or talk to them about it, just get some conversation going so they can clean up their yard a little bit. And I'll give you an example, because when I was going down through the noxious weed in Idaho, my husband has taken all his plants and he loves his garden stuff. And all winter long, he's been nurturing this plant. And when I looked at it, it was one of the noxious weeds in Idaho. So I'm like, well, this is one reason, because if we're doing this, why can't we? And just looking at some of the ditches and seeing the noxious weeds that need to be pulled, it's all the problems they can cause for soil. That's why. It's just something I'm interested in. And where my husband and I are disabled, and our goal is to just do as much as we can for our community voluntarily. That's within our capacity.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you've been involved in mosquito control. Is that correct? Can you just elaborate a little bit about where you fit into the organization as far as decision making and the operations? Or
I have my, if you want to see this, job description. I was a foreman in upper management.
You can just describe it. It's fine.
Don't laugh, because I just got new glasses yesterday, but they're not here. Part of it was providing effective leadership in directing work of assigned employees, ensuring staff are appropriately trained. Another one was evaluate the best method of treatment or service. It was an integrated pest management program, which means you tackle a problem not just through chemicals, physical. You attack it through several ways, and those are chemical, education, physical. When it would come to noxious weed, it would be education, identifying what is a noxious weed. Would you need to have a chemical for it, or is just pulling it out the best way? Just to give you an example, that was part of what I did. Monitor staff on surveillance, control, and operating procedures, coordinate technical data, information on GIS systems, communicate public relations information to the public, that's all I did all winter long. I did presentations for the public.
On mosquitoes?
Mosquitoes, tick, and black flies.
Where was this at? Just out of curiosity.
Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
Create and maintain accurate sets of GIS map utilizing field data. That would be something I would be interested in to see, is how they monitor where all the noxious weeds are, because I don't know if you've ever heard of a Japanese knotwood plant. It's noxious weed in Minnesota. But that was another one. It was taking over my cousin's yard. And we just spent the day pulling it. She had this guy who lived by her that just got back from Taiwan. And he had taken one of the Japanese knotwood, which was horrible for Minnesota. I mean, they were doing everything to get rid of it. And he built a fence around it because he thought it was exotic and bamboo. And again, it goes back to how much damage they can do and how little education can help people. And if when you know where the problem is, it's easier to control it. Did I answer your question? Mm-hmm. Okay. Participated in team meetings and performed all necessary team functions as it relates to district goals. So of course, I wouldn't do anything outside of what I would
purview.
be, I don't know how you say
Yeah.
hired or brought on.
Your scope, sure.
Yeah, within my scope, I wouldn't go beyond that, but I would like to help as much as I possibly can.
Okay. The next question is, have you previously served on committees, either professionally or personally, where you had to deal with varied personalities?
Oh my gosh, yes, forever.
Well, please
I'm a
give us some
donor.
examples.
Well, I'll start out as a Girl Scouts, then Eastern Star, Job's Daughters. Going from there, I served on for decades public health commissions in Cottage Grove, public health and safety for Washington County, emergency preparedness commission in Washington County, Minnesota. I'm involved with the League of Women Voters, which is a nonpartisan organization. I'm involved with BABS, where it's a women's group in Bayview. And right now, we're having a meeting right now, but my husband's helping the guy from the Center of Aging. I'm in charge of setting up speakers for these groups. So
Tell us a little bit about the different personalities that you've had to deal with, an example or two. Just a particular situation
Okay, I'll tell you, I have
and
a
how
good one.
you handled it.
there was, because if you want to do, I really am competitive in a way for just doing a really good job. And I really wanted to control mosquitoes well in my area because I had Dakota County. And I had one guy who hated us. And it said on the, when I first got there, do not go on his property, he will shoot you. And he had a square mile, a perfect square mile with the hottest breeders in the middle of Rosemount. And I really wanted to get in and use BTI or pellets on the sites. And he hated us and he said no, and he was really mean at first. But then I talked to his brothers and sisters, and this is over a couple of years. And they let me on their property because they all live by each other. And then, like a few years later, Mr. McMenemy, I went up to his door and just thought I'd ask him again, because I would always tell people when I was going on their property. We weren't required to, but it was something I did just out of courtesy. And plus, you know, I wanted people to trust us, or trust me. Anyways, he came and he's a gigantic guy, and he came to the door, and you know, I was pretty short and at that time pretty small. And he started laughing, and he said why he hated mosquito control so much is that 20 years beforehand, they had turned him in and this used to be rural, and people were just dumping stuff. You know, people go out and dump stuff out, and like their old garbage and mattresses and stuff. Well, somebody reported that they were dumping, and they weren't, and they had a huge fine, and it was mosquito control who reported them. And I said I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't tell him. And then he asked me if I wanted to date his son. So
If you wanted what?
to date his son.
Oh, okay.
Mr. McMenemy went from wanting to shoot people on his property to wanting me to date his son. I think that's pretty good. I was really good. That's really good with customer calls.
That's certainly a memorable story.
Well, that's why I was basically hired, because if you do mosquito control, there's a lot of people that just don't trust. They have conspiracy theories. And another interesting thing is just when I went back to Minnesota and we were at my brother-in-law's house down in Bethel, Minnesota, they had their 90-some-year-old grandpa that lived there. His property was in my area in North Washington County, and it just was on the edge of being outside the district, and he didn't want anything to do with mosquito control. But I didn't know that it was the same guy until I would just ate dinner with him. And if, you know, first I get kind of annoyed by somebody like that, but instead, because I knew he had awesome property, great boilers, like good breeders on his property, so we used him as test sites, like for when we did bioassays. And so I did know him over the years. And it turns out now I'm related to him.
So you think it's pretty important to try to use honey versus vinegar when working with landowners?
Oh,
And-
gosh, yes. And I think it works.
Okay.
I mean, I'll give you, my dad just passed away. And he was in Tennessee, in rural Tennessee. And he probably had an arsenal. Like, really, I could just get these skills because I'm used to dealing with it. And I felt so bad for anybody that had to go near his house. So I kind of just thought about like everybody, my dad and stepmom, how are they going to act? And also some people that do have rights to mistrust the government, they have reason to, not all the time, but they do. And so I just tried to talk to them, put them at ease. I wouldn't do anything that would harm anybody or put.
Okay. What do you think is the great challenge or issue this board may be involved with?
Just making sure that people pull the noxious weeds or know how to and know what is a noxious weed. Understanding, I mean, why have a board and why have anything if it's not going to do anything? So I just think it's getting, what is the goal of the board and is it going to be, what's the end goal? What's the end game for a board? Why even have one if there isn't, I mean,
What do you think is going to be the great challenge?
nothing. I'm just here.
Okay.
I don't really see any gigantic challenges right now for what I'm applying for.
For the board itself?
Right. Because it only meets twice a year. And I have PTSD really bad. So before COVID started, I was starting to go out and do stuff and get out into the community.
I'm sorry, you had what now?
PTSD really bad.
Oh, okay.
So I was trying to get out into the environment community, and I would go to the YMCA and go to my Baptist, stuff like that. But they shut all that stuff down. So the progress I was making kind of took a few steps back. But now I'm getting a little bit better again, and I want to try. And I think going to 2 meetings a year I can do that. I feel like I can do that.
Okay.
My husband and I we're trying to volunteer as much as we can with our community so we can model what volunteerism looks like so other people can, they can see it, have fun with it. This doesn't look like a pain in the butt. It looks like something that's doable without being too stressful.
Okay. The final question is, noxious weeds cost Idaho landowners millions of dollars a year in crop losses and land degradation. Are you aware of the noxious weeds which exist in Kootenai County that we must address by Idaho law?
Yes.
Can you please elaborate?
Well, I can tell you I can see what they are, but I don't know their names, but I know what they look like. And I know what it's talking about from working with so many farmers. Also, I had a majority of farming in my area, and I lived across the street from farms too. So I would always talk to farmers in Minnesota about. So I understand the damage they do, and I understand why they use herbicides. And I also, though, their aerator went crazy, and I can understand the problem if you don't watch what you're doing with your herbicides, because there could be problems.
Okay. Those were the general questions.
All right, Bill, anything
How
else?
often does the noxious weed board meet?
Twice a year.
Twice a year? And how many members?
I don't know. Well,
That's not a big deal.
I did look it up, and I
Okay.
don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know.
Wondering.
That's okay.
That's all. I think it sounds like you're very enthusiastic. That's what it takes.
Oh, your mic's not on. So, there you go. Okay, well, I thank you for coming in. And what we're going to do is after we're finished with our other items today, we'll meet in executive session and discuss, and somebody will reach out to you today. And we would confirm you next Tuesday if the board decides that you would be a good fit for the board. For the
Okay.
advisory board.
Thank you very much, and I'm gonna just keep applying for stuff I like to,
Yeah.
because this is really important to my husband and I, because we think that we've just been given a second chance in life,
Sure.
and we want to do as much as we can for our community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. All right, item 2, our March 25th Town Hall review. I just wanted to, because it was kind of a meeting not held here, I wanted to talk a little bit about it. And I think really there was only 2 items came up that were Board of Commissioners going to do something eventually about. Is that what you remember?
I don't remember us talking about any pending decisions, but I remember us talking about just conceptually, our approaches to different issues.
I think the waterways was one.
Well, that's true. That is true.
Yeah, no, you can go. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, so,
Yeah.
Bill, one of the questions was when we're going to ban wake surfing on the river. And so we addressed that, not in exact specific terms. So I put everybody towards the April 5th meeting. That was pretty much
Just
our
bring a dead
response.
horse out and beat the hell out of it.
Yes. Yes. Talked a little bit about budget stuff, and then there was one more. Wasn't there one more?
Thank you.
I think you were taking more notes on this one.
It was. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was it. But, coroner got a lot of questions. Sheriff's Department got a couple questions. Stan got a lot of questions. So we actually didn't get the majority of the questions, I don't think.
Well, I think the majority of the questions were asked for the BOCC or the commissioners, but our moderator tried to even them out a little bit.
Yes, yes.
But we'll have the minutes to the meeting.
Yes. Yep,
So
we
it
will
was
have that.
recorded.
Yeah. Yeah, just belt and suspenders. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Anything else? Did you have any questions about Saturday? Nothing? All right. There will be minutes. So then now I would take a motion to enter into executive session to discuss our advisory board appointment.
I move that we go into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061A.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right. We're in executive session. Is there a motion?
I move that we exit executive session 1A with staff to proceed as discussed.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right, public comment. Anything, Jonathan? Nope. All right, 10:24, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
It's a burning topic.